The 2024 Lincoln Nautilus is one of the most surprising vehicles I've reviewed in a while for a couple different reasons. And in this video, I'll cover those reasons as well as talking about the exterior, the very impressive interior, as well as taking it for a drive and seeing how it drives, talking about the fuel economy you can expect, and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as the exterior styling, that is one area where it's no surprise, but it still is very impressive because you have this gorgeous Lincoln styling, and Lincoln's done, really nice styling for basically their entire existence. So, there's no surprises here as far as that goes, but it's just refreshing these days with so many other companies trying to go with polarizing, wild, and to some people, ugly designs. I love that this is just gorgeous looking, and it really stands out on the road, especially in this red carpet metallic color this one's painted in. But right up front there, I love these LED accent lights, and they do a really cool welcome sequence whenever you approach the vehicle at night, and it's a really impressive and cool little welcome sequence as well. But I mean, that grille is very cool, and this one also has the jet appearance package, which gives you more black accents, and that gives you a little bit of extra stealthiness and classiness to the front end there. But it looks really, really sharp with the illuminated Lincoln badge and all that, and it's going to be unmistakable at night whenever one of these comes up behind you. Coming down to the sides here, another very impressive thing, you have these 22-inch wheels here on these top trims, and I love the design of these wheels too. It is inspired by a Nautilus as well, and so just so classy, so cool looking. And I also love the Nautilus badging you have here on the side of the doors. But outside of that, the badging is really subtle. And so, on the sides here, it's very clean and flush. You also have the integrated door handles, which are a really cool touch in my opinion. I also love the D-pillar graphic you have there, which is pretty cool. But then going out to the back, again, there's no badging whatsoever outside of the little Lincoln letters spelled out there in the taillight, which is actually really subtle and I think easy to miss for most people. A lot of people probably won't even know what this is when they come up behind it, but it is surprisingly, refreshingly subtle in a world where badging continues to get bigger and bigger and brag to the world of what you have. This is kind of, discreet in a way, and I really like it. But I mean, beautiful back end with that taillight bar that goes all the way across the back end. And this one, again, with a black accent package, also gives you the darker accents there lower in the rear bumper. It makes it look like it could even be an electric vehicle because you have no actual exhaust tips or anything. They're all hidden neatly under the bumper there. This thing looks very expensive and very impressive from every single angle, and it's a really nice size too. It feels like it's maybe a tiny bit bigger than like a Lexus RX or something like that. And anyway, it just has so much presence and just looks fantastic. The first surprise of the Nautilus is this interior, which feels honestly like I've stepped 5 or 10 years into the automotive future with this massive 4-foot wide display. It's 48 inches. It is impressive, and you would think that maybe, oh man, it's gonna be like, trying to look over a wall when you're driving or something. It's not. You actually see the hood still, and that comes up even higher than this whole gauge screen cluster arrangement, whatever you call it, this wall of screens. It doesn't get in the way, and I'm only 5'9", and you can get this seat up nice and high if you're concerned about that, but to me, it hasn't gotten in the way at all, and I've been driving this vehicle for a week already. So really, really impressive, but so much of this interior is just so impressive. So first off, this one has these top 24-way adjustable seats, which are super comfortable. I mean, you can adjust even, the various sections of the seat bottom, the bolstering, the seat back. It is called perfect position seats, and for a good reason, because you can really tweak this to have exactly what you want. And they're also heated and cooled as standard, by the way, which really makes the base Nautilus a fantastic value, and I'll talk more about the value of the Nautilus here later in the video. But heated and cooled is standard, and they also have massaging here once you go up to this 24-way top seat. And the massage is actually really well done. It's not like some of the more basic massages you see in other vehicles where it's just basically like inflating the lumbar support back and forth. This is a really advanced, there's a bunch of different programs, but a really advanced kind of intense massage that really digs into your back there, and it's really, really well done. I really love trying out massaging seats, and I gotta say, this is probably one of the top ones that I've experienced. And so really good seats. The cooling does okay. It's not super cold, but decent. I don't think it's the best out there as far as cooled seats, but nice to have nonetheless. But just really great seats. Next is the steering wheel, which also feels like you've gone a little bit into the future here with, just this oval steering wheel that doesn't really have any actually labeled buttons here on it. You have, these little pads, and you look up at the screen and that will show you The left side does your cruise controls, and then the right side does your audio controls. But it's wonderfully simple, but still does everything you're wanting it to do, really. And I also like they ditched paddle shifters. No one in the luxury SUV segment's using paddle shifters. I'm glad they had the bravery to ditch that. And you'll also see the driver monitoring sensor here for the Blue Cruise system that you have here in this, and that also comes as standard. I'll get more into that later though. But just a really great wheel. But then these gauges, getting back to what I guess we'll say the first screen here for these gauges, there's only one break in the middle, and I love how seamlessly everything's blended. Like, you will see that there's a little bit of like overlap between, you know, this display, which is animated, by the way, with this slow animation of this like tide coming in, you know, and then you have that blending into this Google Maps display, and it will default to Google Maps. This vehicle is running the Android Automotive system, and so that means you do have Google Maps built in, but you do still have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, thankfully. And if you do navigate with like Apple Maps or whatever map application you want to use, it will then put that map up there in place of the Google Map. And that's really cool, because that means that if you have navigation running and you still want to do something else with CarPlay, like, you know, play around with the song or skip tracks, or, you know, go into another app, you can text while still having the navigation instructions up there. And it's really cool. I think it's the first vehicle I've encountered where you can have two different CarPlay screens doing two different things at the same time. And again, that feels like something futuristic. Like, wow, like I've never thought of doing this, but it's really nice to have. And so there's not a lot of customization for this, I will say. So, you know, you see the different quadrants here and the different things that I have up here selected. Now you can go into this other screen and pick a few other things, but they're pretty basic. It's like a clock and a few other things. I think that's a little underutilized. It'd be nice to see a few more widgets or whatever you want to call them here on here. But I mean, it's so cool to see just, you know, the nice animation of the weather, whatever it is. But it's so cool. I absolutely adore this. It's blown me away all week. And I also love that they didn't lose sight of what customers actually want, which is a regular touchscreen that works normally and uses their smartphone. And I like that they added this screen. Some other companies might try and put some big thing here up front, but then ditch this touchscreen. But I like that we have both. So it still has the ease of use of a regular touchscreen, but still all the bling and all the, you know, attractiveness of this giant screen as well. And it's the best of both worlds. I really think they were smart about the way they approached this, and the fact that they didn't just tell the customer what the customer should want, but, you know, did what the customers actually do want. And that's something that's getting, you know, rarer in the automotive segment in a lot of ways. And so anyway, I absolutely love this top screen, and coming down to this 11.1 inch touchscreen, that is also wonderfully simple. You know, you have just a few different little menus here, and since it is running Android Automotive, you can also download apps, and you can have like YouTube on here, and you can actually watch YouTube videos on here when you're parked, and you know, just a few other things in there. But, you know, tuning radio stations and all that is nice and easy. It also tries to give you like intelligent suggestions. You see there, it tried to suggest some radio stations for me here, gave me a little thing of let's keep your day going strong. Just, you know, nice little things. But other cool things that are baked into this screen that you can change are the scents, which you have here in these upper trims of the Nautilus, and it'll diffuse. You have 3 different scents to choose from there, and it's actually really nice having, you know, some cologne, perfume kind of, you know, smells in here if you like that. You also have the all the ambient lighting, which is gorgeous at night, how the way it lights up the doors and stuff here. And you also do have your typical climate controls down here as well. Now, it is all on the screen. There are no physical climate controls. I know some people that's really, you know, an upsetting thing. And I gotta say that for this, it's all nice because it's all in this bottom bar no matter what you're doing, and it's always constantly there, and most things are only one tap away. You know, I will say though, like turning on your massaging seat, you know, that is a couple of taps there. And also, I don't love that the air vents can only be controlled with the touch screen here. So you have to kind of play this little video game of trying to point your air vents with the touch controls on the screen there. That's something I think they borrowed from Tesla, who unfortunately pioneered that advancement, and I don't know why, because putting little tiny notches on these air vents wouldn't detract from the look, in my opinion, but they decided to go with that. That is something I think is needlessly complicated and is likely to probably break someday. So I don't love that, but outside of, you know, that one little complaint, this whole thing is fantastic. It's also hooked up to this awesome 28 speaker Revel surround sound stereo that is really impressive. I mean, you have speakers here in the ceiling, and also because you have this like almost tabletop with the dashboard being so low, you have this huge speaker that's really close to you here versus other vehicles where it's got to go around, you know, big screen and stuff. You don't really have that here in this. So I think it's a better sound stage just because of the design of this interior too. And of course the beautiful metal speaker grills are just gorgeous to look at as well and feel really nice. But it's a really fantastic stereo, and to me it's right up there with some of the top stuff, you know, like Bowers and Wilkins and some of the Volvos and things like that. I'm no audio expert, so you know, your mileage may vary, but to me it has been mind-blowing this week, you know, even having it only up 2/3 of the way. I mean, it is so clear, so crisp, the bass is really strong and fantastic, and no matter what genre of music I was listening to, it was always really, really good sounding. And that is something, but this Revel stereo and these seats are basically like a $4,600 upgrade over the lower Reserve 2. This is a Reserve 3 that I have here. So basically the price tag for this stereo system and these seats is $4,600. That's steep, but when you look at the Bowers & Wilkins stereo alone, that's $3,200. Some others don't even offer massaging or a massage that's as advanced as this is. So again, I'll talk more about value later, but they're pricey upgrades for these two things, but it's not, you know, outrageous these days, especially in the luxury segment. And so anyway, just a really fantastic stereo. A couple other little things I will mention here. So you have this really nice selection of buttons here for your gear selector and a few of the other shortcuts here, and this beautiful like crystal volume knob, and that is so nice to use. I love a little bit of a knurling on it here. And in this area, you know, you have lots of actual metal, and everything feels really solid as well for the build quality. I mean, tiny bit squeaky, but honestly just really, really nice. And you have some leather padding all the way on the sides here. But one thing is my knee, well, the way it hits, you either have a little bit of padding on the top or a little bit on the bottom, but if your knee is in the same position as mine, it'll rest right up against this nice cool or hot metal, I guess, depending on you know, where the vehicle's been. But you know, you just have your knee resting on metal. Not the best as far as a comfort standpoint. I love the look of it. It is very beautiful and cool looking, but I kind of wish that was just like a nice little pillow there instead. Other things here that are great, you have nice large pockets in the doors, and you have a wireless phone charger in the middle here, as well as 2 cup holders, another little spot here. And I mean, it's not a ton of space. Some others do have a little bit more on this top level, but you do have this extra bonus bin underneath of that whole center console, and you know, that's a little hard to access. It's not a huge opening, but you know, some nice extra bonus storage there for things you don't use all the time. And then you have the center armrest, which is pretty nice and softly padded. You open that up and you will see a pretty deep cubby that also has 2 more USB-C jacks and a regular power outlet. But as far as regular USB-A, you just have one next to this other USB-C out here in the open. And the impressiveness continues in the back, where those rear seat occupants especially are greeted with this large panoramic roof, which is again in some of these higher trims, but you don't have to go to a fully loaded one to get that, thankfully. It is available on lower trims, but it's a really beautiful piece of glass that also does open up, which is another nice bonus touch. But anyway, hopping into that back seat there, I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I have plenty of leg room, and you know, nice soft comfortable seats that slide and recline. There's a fold down center armrest with a little extra cubby and 2 cup holders in there. You'll also see that they have heated rear seat controls there and their own air vents, but it is notable that some in this segment do offer a cooled second row seat for the outboard seats. The Lexus RX, for example, does offer that. You don't have that option here in this. That's the only miss from a feature content standpoint, I think, in this vehicle. Otherwise, they have their own pockets on the doors there, and you just have a really nice back seat. Cargo space is also really good here in the Nautilus. It's a pretty long space. I don't think it's the biggest in this segment by any means, but should be, you know, more than enough for most people, I think. And you'll see there's another power outlet. There's a remote drop for the seats if you want to fold them down there with a button. And then there's also a nice little convenient grocery hooks. And beneath the floor there, you also have a spare tire, which is something that is getting more and more rare as well. So great that you still have that here in this. So yeah, overall, I was really shocked sitting in this interior. I mean, I'd seen pictures of it and stuff, but experiencing it and living with it and living with all the nice features that it has been so nice and luxurious, and I just absolutely love rolling around in this thing. The only critique that I can say about this whole digital gauge cluster, I guess you could call it, is that there is no mechanical information outside of it shows you your coolant temp up there, and then it also, you know, just shows you your speed and your fuel range. That is it. I mean, you know, if you're buying one of these, a luxury SUV buyer probably doesn't care about seeing a tach or any of the other stuff, you know, but it'd be nice to option some of that on here. And it also would be nice to see your hybrid information. A lot of other Fords are really cool about bringing that up, but even in this middle screen, I don't see any way to give me any kind of hybrid info about when it's regenning, when the gas engine's coming on, you know, the extra efficiency you can see kind of with that working. It'd be kind of cool to be able to see that stuff, and unfortunately you don't see any of that here. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Lincoln has the usual Lincoln key, which is just a Ford key with a Lincoln badge on it, but still has the metal buttons there on it though, and honestly, it's a classy enough key. I still think it's totally fine. But of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. And I gotta say, I love those little chimes that it does. It is a really nice little extra layer of polish here on this vehicle. It even does it when you're closing the rear hatch, when the doors are open. It's much better than the usual dinging and donging that you see with most other vehicles. All right, so setting off here in the Nautilus. So this brings me to my other set of surprises here with this vehicle. Is I was really surprised with how this drives. So as far as all the things you'll notice right away, I think the first thing is, you know, visibility is still very good, like I mentioned earlier, you know, with this screen not getting in the way. And so you have a really good view forward. The A-pillar is not too thick. The mirrors, you know, are kind of off onto the doors there a little bit, but they're small mirrors. That's one interesting choice there. Also, for a vehicle that's as high-tech and luxurious as this is, I'm surprised we don't have a camera rear view mirror. You just have a regular old-fashioned one. The view is fine, but that's just something that, you know, most others do offer and have as standard in many cases as well. And so that's the only odd thing that is kind of low tech in here is the rear mirror. But otherwise, you know, the other things that I'm noticing here, so it is so quiet and so smooth and refined. But I mean, there's active noise cancellation, and that combined with just a ton of sound insulation, I'm guessing, makes this so quiet. And this whole week driving around, I barely even noticed what was going on around me as far as sound goes. It's so serene in here, even whenever you don't have any music playing or anything. It is really impressive, and to me it stands out even among luxury SUVs. And I mean, I've driven my fair share of them, and this really seems like it's a step above the others and is really, really well done. And the ride is also so smooth. One thing that isn't always smooth is the brakes. At very low speeds, the brakes can sometimes get a little bit grabby unexpectedly. Ford and Lincoln, they're not the best with the regen brakes whenever you have the electrical component, whether it's their EVs or their hybrids. They can sometimes just not do the best with regen. The other odd thing is that this vehicle doesn't really like to coast, and so I've noticed as I'm going down hills, I will like take my foot off the gas, and the car basically wants to sit at whatever speed it was going whenever I took my foot off of the gas, and I have to like hit the gas to like override that and allow me to coast. It's kind of odd because most other hybrids still let you just freewheel down a hill. You know, they're not going to be braking aggressively. Now electric vehicles do that, but you know, not hybrids like this is. So it's weird. It kind of feels like an EV going down a hill for whatever reason. And so yeah, just another interesting note. But another thing though that really blew me away, and I think one of the biggest surprises, is the ride in this vehicle. And I'll talk more about this in a minute or two, but the ride is so floaty. To me, it feels like the most 90s or 80s feeling ride as far as, you know, just those floaty vehicles of the past in a good way. And I mean that as a compliment, and I will explain that more in a minute. But we're coming up to our usual spot where I'm going to go ahead and turn down onto this back road and see how it does. I'm in the Excite mode, which is the sporty drive mode here, and here we go. So it accelerates, but there's no fuss and there's really no sound. That is the other thing. Again, getting back to just how quiet it is. You hardly hear the engine. There's a lot of times I couldn't even tell if it was on. And I mean, if you have the radio or, you know, stereo going, forget it. You'll never be able to guess when the engine's on. It is that smooth and quiet. You know, there's no vibrations. There's no nothing. The engine just seems like it's on another planet that's just doing something, and it somehow is giving you propulsion, but like doesn't even feel like it's connected to the car almost. It is, I think this is the quietest gas-powered car outside of maybe Rolls-Royces and stuff like that I've experienced, where the engine is such a minor player in the experience that you don't even really notice that it's doing anything. Like, it is, again, so impressive with the refinement here. Again, that is just one of the biggest surprises to me. And, you know, so now we're on this road that generates some more road noise. And you know, you do hear a little bit of road noise. That is the one thing that does kind of come through a little bit. I think part of that to blame is, you know, on these 22-inch wheels with the lower profile tires they have, you know, those often are going to give you some extra road noise. But I have to say that even over bumps, though, the ride continues to stay smooth here, even with 22-inch wheels. But going to accelerate with the wheel turn here. And it does a pretty good job putting the power down, but again, it's such a floaty experience that it's you know, not a vehicle that really likes to be pushed, in my opinion. And by the way, what we're running here, all Nautiluses get a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, but in this hybrid version, which is only a $1,500 option, you get a bigger turbocharger, and then you also get the electric motors there for the hybrid assistance. And so it's 310 horsepower in this hybrid version. Base ones will have 250 horsepower, but you know, the hybrid is certainly nice to have. It gives you that extra oomph. Also, the transmission, for anyone who's curious, is a CVT here in the hybrid system, like you see with any other hybrid. You know, it mostly uses CVTs, but if you go for the non-hybrid version, you'll have an 8-speed automatic here. And 0 to 60 time for these, by the way, it's a 6.6 second time with the hybrid. It jumps up to a 7.3 seconds 0 to 60 if you go for the non-hybrid. Both, you know, totally fine. You know, not the fastest in this segment or anything, but also not the slowest either, with the Lexus RX doing about 46 less horsepower and being even a little bit slower than this is. We also have adaptive dampers here that firm up the ride in this Excite mode and give us some sportier handling, but coming up some corners here I always take. Let's see how the Nautilus handles. It's over 4,700 pounds for the hybrid version, about 160 pounds heavier than the non-hybrid Nautilus. And you know, it handles itself okay. Honestly, there's a little bit of lean there, but in this Excite mode, it's doing a pretty good job of being pretty well behaved, but the nose really wants to wash out. And I just feel like I don't have a lot of grip with these. I mean, these are just like regular Grand Touring all-season tires or whatever. I'm not expecting this to handle like a sports car. I don't want it to handle like a sports car, but it's like extra floaty compared to all the other competitors. You know, Cadillac's trying to go for this sportier thing these days, and all the Germans, of course, always have some sportier dynamics. And this is okay just being, you know, I'd say a little less athletic for sure than all of those. You know, it doesn't feel, even in Excite mode here, it doesn't feel like it wants to go into the corner at any kind of elevated speed. You can really tell this car's comfort level is whenever you're doing, you know, a relaxed pace. That is what this is designed for, and for good reason, because that's everyone that buys these is going to be doing, is a relaxed pace. No one's going to be treating this like a sports car, so I won't even talk about handling anymore. But you have adaptive dampers to, you know, try and give you a little bit of a sportier ride. The one other thing that I'll add, though, about the handling here is that because you don't have a lot of front end grip in particular, even in the dry, there was one day when I was driving this in the rain and trying to go around corners, and it does not want to be rushed. You don't have a lot of grip in wet scenarios. There is, you know, a few different weather drive modes here that I guess would maybe help you to be a little extra conservative there, but it just didn't feel like it had a lot of grip, and I think that really just comes down to these tires primarily. But I would just say if you live in a place that's a little bit snowy, you know, you're going to want to be a little extra careful with this in the wintertime, because it just doesn't feel like I got a lot of grip there and doesn't give me a lot of confidence as a result. But back in normal mode here, the one thing that I've really noticed is that, you know, the car does like to wallow a little bit, especially in normal mode here. It really softens up the dampers a lot, so that, you know, you have a little bit of nose dive here. You have, you know, the back end or the front end coming up a little bit whenever you get back onto the gas. And it all felt very floaty. And it's not so much even whenever you're like making maneuvers and stuff, but also whenever you're just floating along down the road, going over bumps. Like, there was like times where it actually feels floaty. Like, it takes, you know, a lot of other vehicles, it's just like boom, and the bump is over. This, it's like, oh, okay, there's like some rebounds. And it honestly, I'm not saying this in a bad way, but it almost feels like it has blown struts sometimes. Not that extreme. That is, you know, taking it a little bit too far, but it really feels that floaty and soft. But I've been saying this for years, that a luxury vehicle needs to have that kind of a setup. I think there's room in the market for people who don't care about sportiness and just want a super floaty ride. And this, to me, does a better job of that than, again, basically everything that's not an exotic luxury vehicle. I mean, it feels like I'm riding on a cloud, and that might be like an overused, you know, kind of exaggeration, but it's truly like a floaty experience. And I can't say that I've experienced anything this floaty probably ever. I mean, even like the Rolls Royces that I've driven, I think felt a little tighter, to be completely honest. This is really floaty, but I love it for it, because again, that's the hallmarks of luxury. It's just, you know, this almost disconnected ride. You don't want to be having an aggressive or enthralling driving experience. You just want to be, you know, driven around in serenity and in a relaxed state, and that's what this does. It soaks up all those bumps. Now, there's the occasional harsh bump, like, you know, driving over a manhole cover or something like that, that can send a sharp, you know, feeling through the interior here. But I'd say that a majority of all the minor little bumps and stuff, it just floats right over, and it just has this nice marshmallowy coating over the ride that is, again, just no one else does it like this. No one else is bold enough to truly go for a soft ride like this. And I respect Lincoln. I actually respect them a lot for going this far, and I think that buyers are going to love this. If you are someone who just wants a soft, comfortable luxury SUV, you go for a test drive in this compared to anything else this competes with, this is going to feel like the better ride, hands down, and it's going to be noticeable, like noticeably, like, wow, this thing is completely different from the way everyone else tunes a luxury SUV suspension. And again, it's something I don't usually talk about the ride for 5 minutes straight, but like, it blew me away. The first drive in this, I was like, holy cow, I'm like floating over these bumps, and it just feels like I'm just floating along. And again, I'm an enthusiast and I love sports cars and stuff, but if I'm buying a luxury vehicle and that is my focus, I don't need it to be sporty, this is going to win hands down in the ride department. It is so good. I mean, I'd be curious to try out, you know, one of these without the adaptive dampers to see how that does. But I have confidence that Lincoln, since they had the boldness to make this choice, that it will continue to be, you know, a really nice ride, even if you don't get these adaptive dampers. But we're out on the highway here now, so I'm going to go ahead and put on the adaptive cruise control system. And this does have Blue Cruise as standard. And so we're going to try that out here. And it says Blue Cruise is enabled. So as long as you have that box checked in your safety systems here, it will, you know, automatically do that whenever it's available. So here I am, hands-free. The only other company that can offer hands-free like this on the highway is Cadillac. Outside of Cadillac, this is it. And it is really, again, so impressive. And this adds another dimension of extra relaxation that all the other competitors, again, outside of Cadillac, can offer. Like, no one else offers hands-free. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but the difference between being up here and being down here and having your hands resting on your lap, you still have to be paying attention. And again, the monitoring sensor here will make sure you're paying attention. But, you know, just the fact that you can just sit there and watch everything go by, you arrive so much more refreshed. And we actually have Blue Cruise in our Mach-E that we have personally, and we did some road trips in that with the Blue Cruise. It is a really nice thing to have. Now, this is working great right now. I did notice this week that it did kick off at various times for no good reason. I was on the same kind of road. There were no changes to the road. There was no other variables that had changed. It just was like, okay, now it's your turn to take over. And it doesn't seem to work as often and as long as Super Cruise does. And so, you know, that is, I think Super Cruise is still the better system for sure, just because, again, it has that extra confidence. And also, they are upgrading this system to do auto lane changes and things like that, but Super Cruise already has that, and Super Cruise is now also, see, now it's just asking me to take over for no reason. The road is still clear. So this is why, to me, it needs to still work basically 100% of the time, like Super Cruise does, and this still can be a little iffy. So you still have to be on guard every once in a while, just be like, okay, and pay attention, because there's no sound, by the way. It just tells you in the gauge cluster, keep your hands on the wheel. And I guess if I didn't respond to it, maybe get more assertive. But, you know, you barely even notice when it's like, oh, wait, please have your hands on the wheel again. And so that's just, you know, an interesting change there. But still, they have a hands-free system that works most of the time. And although it's still waiting to re-enable here, it's not going back to hands-free yet. But again, some hands-free is better than no hands-free at all. I still think Cadillac easily wins the hands-free driving thing. Super Cruise is just hands down the best thing out there currently, and that's even been expanded beyond highways to regular 2-lane roads now. But this runner-up is still not a bad place to be in, and again, gives this a leg up over all the other competitors for sure. And we're back to hands-free now. And the other thing to mention about Blue Cruise is that in lower trims or lower option packages, it's only free for 90 days. Then you have to pay a subscription for it. But if you go for these higher packages of the Nautilus here, then it gives you 4 years of Blue Cruise service here before you then need to subscribe to it. It'd be nice to have it, you know, it's something that lasts forever. At least if you go for a higher package, you get 4 years and then you have to worry about it after that. But, you know, I don't love that it's a subscription, but I guess that's part of the trade-off of making this system standard. And that means that, you know, you don't have to pay extra to get it in here, but you do have to pay a subscription. So just one thing to note there. Otherwise, as far as all the other safety tech goes here in the Nautilus, everything is included. You know, it's got everything as standard: blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, you know, all the parking sensors, the cameras here, the 360 camera, you know, all those things are all standard here. And really nice that you have, you know, everything you can think of here as standard. And by the way, you do still have adaptive cruise. So even if you don't want to subscribe to Blue Cruise, you will still have a regular adaptive cruise control system that still does have a lane keep assist. It just, again, you're paying for that hands-free thing is the only, you know, upcharge there. But you know, still just a really nice highway cruiser, by the way, as well. I mean, again, a little bit of road noise, and that is the area where, you know, stuff like the high-end stuff, Rolls Royces, things like that, would have even more sound deadening to be even quieter. But for, you know, regular luxury stuff, I'd say this is definitely still towards the top of the pack. Fuel economy here for the Nautilus is very good with the hybrids. The rated fuel economy here is 30 mpg in the city, 31 on the highway, and 30 combined. And so in my driving here, now I did do a bunch of idling to film this interior and stuff, so that dropped the average. But before I did that, I was seeing like 29.8 mpg. So I'm seeing basically that 30 mpg number, and that was doing my usual mix of around town, suburban driving, as well as a little bit of highway mixed in there. But I was really impressed with that fuel economy figure, because typically I get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating, so I was expecting to get like 28 or so, and instead I'm, you know, hitting that combined rating, which, I mean, with a hybrid is a little easier because that low speed stuff that I do a lot of, you know, certainly is more beneficial in a hybrid here. But still, I was just, you know, pleasantly surprised that I'm actually hitting that for something that, you know, is 4,700 pounds, 310 horsepower, and you know, yet I'm still getting 30 mpg. That is a feat for something like this. There's most others that are going to struggle to do that. Now, if you don't go for the hybrid system, you do also have a pretty big downgrade in fuel economy. You get 24 mpg combined. It even drops as low as 21 in the city if you don't go for the hybrid. So that'll come down to, again, how much you know, driving you do. If you're doing mostly highway stuff, I think these are only like 29 for the regular gas on the highway, so you don't give up too much there. So if you're strictly highway driving, you know, maybe the hybrid system won't work for you as far as a benefit. But outside of that, if you do lower speed driving, the hybrid, with only a $1,500 upcharge and the extra power you get along with it, I think seems like a no-brainer to upgrade to, honestly. And so, yeah, really impressed with the efficiency here. But that leads me into the last thing to mention here, which is pricing and how it compares to the competition. And I will say this is not the best performing as far as efficiency goes, but there's the other side of that coin. And so first off, as far as the way this one is priced here, so these start right around $52,000, and at that $52,000 price tag, it is a really strong value, because you get heated and cooled seats as standard, you get a heated steering wheel as standard, you get all these screens as standard. Now you go down to, you know, a lower, I think 10 speaker stereo in the base one, and obviously there's a lot of other stuff. You'll get regular seats, you won't get the scent stuff, the ambient lighting. You know, there's definitely some downgrades there, but it's a lot of vehicle for 52 grand. And again, you can get the hybrid still even in the base one. So you have this much horsepower, this much luxury for, you know, under 55 grand is really impressive, actually, for a vehicle that's this large. Again, we're talking mid-sized SUVs here. It's really competitively priced for that starting price. Now, this one, as tested, is about $72,000, and that's still honestly not too bad and undercuts, you know, most of the others out there. But the biggest competitor to this vehicle, I think, is the Lexus RX. And so the RX comes in a few grand cheaper than this, and does give you 36 mpg combined, so it's going to give you better fuel economy and come in at a lower price tag. But the trade-off is that you have a lot less horsepower. Like I said, it's, I think, 246 horsepower in that, so not as much punch. You don't have these huge screens, you don't have, you know, the massage or anything, and I'm talking like a comparable one to this one. So 5 grand less than this is great, but, you know, again, there are those little trade-offs. And you know, I mean, the tech in the RX is fine, and by traditional car standards, you know, it's impressive. It's got a 14-inch touchscreen and all that, But then you get in this and it's like, whoa, you know, again, that wow factor of this 4-foot screen and, you know, all the other, you know, plushness in here. I mean, the RX certainly has its appeal. It has, you know, rock solid reliability with the Lexus brand, and the fact that not only can you get, you know, regular gas and the hybrid like this, but there's also a plug-in hybrid available, and also a sportier version for those who do have an enthusiast leaning. You know, you have that as well here in the RX, and you don't have that here in this. So the Lincoln is really focused on the luxury thing, and as nice as the RX is with its ride and all that, this to me again has a little bit of an extra refinement to it, and you know, extra floatiness to it that I think, again, regular luxury buyers are really going to be excited by. You also have the Genesis GV80, which is, you know, another very, very impressive vehicle, and it also gets a redo here for the 2025 model year, and so that is another one that's, you know, worth considering, but there's no hybrid for that, so you're going to get worse fuel economy in that. Now you do have the option of a punchier twin turbo V6, but again, even that, even with its interior upgrade for 25, has way less screen real estate, and again, doesn't feel as futuristic as this does, even though that is still very plush, and I love the GV80. But again, you get into this, and again, everything else just seems like it's a step back compared to this. It really, again, it just seems like you are 5 or 10 years in the future compared to basically all the other competitors that are bragging about, you know, 12, maybe 14-inch screens, you know, and then it's like, try 4 feet of screen plus another 11-inch one, you know. So that's why this just, the Nautilus just blew me away. It was just, it's been so impressive all week. It's been so cool, and it's also just, you know, an impressive value. Coming back to that, you know, you look at the German competitors, none of them offer a regular hybrid, so it's not really a great direct comparison. You know, if you go for any kind of more efficient version of the Germans, it's gonna be a plug-in hybrid. They all have a bunch of power and again, this sporty setup to them, and they're all gonna be way more expensive. We're talking mid-80s for something comparable to this, some even higher. And, you know, there's just no value there. Now, I will say, if you compare the top version of the Nautilus here, which is the black label, those are like 81 or so, and you compare that to the Germans, it's like, oh, well, you not only pay a few grand more for the Germans, but the black label thing basically only gives you unique interior colors with like a light gray and then like a redwood theme, they call it. But it's that, and you get like the Lincoln Concierge stuff of like a free detail once a year and like pickup for service and like minor little things. And the black label basically gets all the same equipment as this does otherwise, and it's like $9,000 more expensive. Is it worth 9 grand more for those two interior colors and, you know, a detail once a year? No. Like, to me, that's not worth it. So the black label to me is an easy one to skip, and again, just, I won't even consider that as far as the value proposition, because I think, again, the bottom line is the best value here is this Reserve 3 that Lincoln sent me here. I think is, you know, going to be the best value as far as the amount of stuff you get for the money, and it's just so impressive. So overall, I mean, the Lincoln has really jumped to the top of the pack as probably my favorite luxury mid-sized SUV. And going into this week, I'd be honest, I wasn't expecting to say that. I expected this to be impressive, obviously, with the screens and all that, but just the way that they chose to set this up with the suspension, the way that everything works so well, and the way that everything has been executed and implemented so well is what really stood out to me, whether it's the materials or just, you know, just how well they tuned everything, again, with a minor exception of the brake pedal not being perfect, but that is so minor that, again, I was enjoying myself so much this week that didn't bother me really at all. And overall, I love the Lincoln Nautilus. It is fantastic. Highly recommend. I won't go on any longer here. You've heard enough, I'm sure. But yes, that is all of my thoughts on the Nautilus. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Lincoln for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.